Let's welcome our stars. Real quick, they're such troopers to do this because yesterday they had a very intimate short concert of about 3 hours.
Brief.
Yeah, it's a little warm up for this.
Yeah, right.
And it was a spectacular night. I mean, everybody's still talking about it, so it's really, really thank you guys for everything. And thank you for doing this. So, Felix, please.
Thank you, Sharon. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here in this wonderful space, Amon Carter Museum. Thank you for hosting us. My name is Felix. I'm the Associate Dean and Professor of Violin at the College of Music, the University of North Texas, and it's really great to be here. Thank you so much. Dean Richmond would have loved to be here, but he's currently on a business trip in Korea, but he sends his warmest regards. He has been a great supporter of this endeavor, and he hopes, and we all hope, this is the first of many more collaborations between the Chamber Music Society of Fort Worth and Culture of Music. On behalf of our quartet members, their coaches, I want to express my deepest gratitude to Gary Livingston and also the board members of Chamber Music Society of Fort Worth while creating this wonderful opportunity for our students to perform in today's masterclass. It's such a thrill for all of us to be here. And of course, I would like to thank the members of the Miró Quartet to make some time in their very, very busy schedules to work with our students. It's such a terrific opportunity to learn from the real masters. And I hope you're having a wonderful week in Fort Worth. A great beginning. Last night I heard wonderful concert. So thank you so much for coming all the way from Austin. And Gary, maybe?
Yeah, just one final comment, just housekeeping. So those of you who would like to use the facilities is all the way down here and to the right. And we're planning on getting a small break so that they can relax a little bit, probably after the third group, either the second or the third group. And I know that we talked about Q&A. I would think probably at the end is the time to do it. And
let's try to do that.
They're wonderful at sharing experience, so I encourage all of you to think about your questions as quickly as possible, and then we'll do it at the end. Okay? Enjoy.
We're going to come sit out here. But do you want to maybe introduce yourselves at the piece you're playing, and then go ahead and perform?
Hello, we are the Hyacinth Quartet. Our first violinist is Kelly. Our second violinist is Ella. This is Shania. I'm Ethan. And we'll be playing Beethoven's Quartet No. 4 in C minor.
There we go. Oh, man, that was awesome. Are you plugged in?
Yeah.
We are tethered here. But I first just want to say, we got to play this one last night.
That's right.
This is a really challenging one to play, and you all are doing so well. You sound like a quartet. I know it doesn't feel so great up here, but there's actually a really nice resonance that comes from this space. So back there, the quartet sound that's coming out is really special and unique, and there's strength to everybody. So I think what we want to do is just see where we can help. I had a couple things.
Sure.
Did you have something you want to start with?
I would love to arrange them so that they're
Yeah.
feeling a little more comfortable and that they're faced more out to the hall.
Yeah, so one of the things we always are thinking about is, so what is our relationship to all these wonderful people out here? And if, so in our quartet, let me see if I can make it, I sit here. And one of the things that we know, well, let's see if we know, how does sound come out of the cello? Which direction does it go? It goes that way, right? So where's your sound going?
Towards the first part.
Right there.
Right. Who's
What-
not paying to
What
get a
about all
ticket for the
these people
show?
out here who paid a ticket to see and hear you play?
Yeah.
So this is maybe the most challenging seat in the quartet, although each one has its own issues. So if you were playing solo cello, you'd be sitting like straight out there, right? So what I'd love to do is just move you out, and we're going to kind of fuss with everybody here. The other thing for you is put your violin up. Yeah, and so you're twisting just a little bit here, but I wonder, would you mind standing up for a second? Yeah. We actually, here, let me, I'm going to move you just a little bit. We pivot everybody just a little bit. Again, so you can see me here versus me playing straight this way. Does that make sense? So now my music, and you can see our cellist is coming around. Now we're starting to open up, and we actually think about this as a circle.
Right.
We're half of the circle, and this is the other half here. And so, yeah, try sitting down. I know I'm a little bit bigger than you are. And then in the back here, the other challenge, I don't know if do you want to address the viola?
Sure. I mean, in the same way that we want everyone's F-holes more or less facing out towards the audience, and as Will said, we want to create the feeling of a semicircle on stage that's open to the audience. I did notice also your sound was also going to the back wall a little bit, and I think it would be fine if you could maybe rotate so you're actually sitting facing as flat out as you can.
Yeah. And so and you can test this like, so here, actually try sitting like, okay, I am the center of the stage.
Right.
I mean, your viola is so, the stage. Yeah. And let's even pivot you, let's try it, just see what it feels like to sit even a little more like that. What does that feel like? Weird, huh? And for you too, you notice we're setting you up again, so your sound isn't going over there, but it's bam. Now, how does this feel to you all out there?
It
Yeah?
looks good, right?
Yeah.
You can see everyone's faces. When their instruments are up, you feel like their instruments are playing to you. If I might say, to follow what you said, it does feel a little uncomfortable doing this, right? And I feel like we get into rehearsal room or practice room mode, because probably at wherever you're rehearsing on campus, you have small rooms, you have to sign out, and facing each other seems to make sense in the rehearsal. But we need to kind of practice actually sitting in a performance setup, because it feels different, right? You can see different things now than before. Maybe less. Are there people you can see less of? or more of, or is it just different? Any feedback?
Yeah, how does it feel?
I feel like she's a little bit behind me.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And she is.
And she is. Right.
What else?
And you're faced a little bit away from the group now. Perhaps you might not be able to see them quite as easily. Certainly in the second violin spot, I think what you can see from your first violinist, I wouldn't say it's more or less, but it's different.
It's just different. And so you'll need to use different things to measure and keep the fabric of the quartet. But that'll also be a nice challenge. The other thing we use is the wire stands. So it creates a little clearer visual lines. Like it's really hard to see where his bow hits the string right now, right? And so that could be something that you move stands around a little bit to see. Can we just play the opening? And let's just hear what it sounds like, how it changes your sound. Yeah.
Do you hear a difference?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So for us, or for me, so we can get some comments from the audience or not, it's got a lot more clarity. I hear a lot more of each one of you, and the sound of the group is much more present. And so now I'm getting a lot more information on exactly artistically what you want to happen. Do you have anything to add?
I would also say that all the acoustic stuff and the arrangement stuff is important, but even more is now I can tell that all four of you as a quartet are thinking, oh, I have to play to them. And I did feel like when we started, your focus was on each other, and just being reminded that we're always supposed to be sending the group energy and our individual energy out, because that's what the music is all about, right? Sharing it with the people out in the audience. So I feel like that psychological shift has happened and helps as well.
I was just thinking, but you can hand it over to you, work a little bit just on leadership.
I think leadership, particularly from the middle voices, would be really great to work on.
So another thing that we kind of shift, and this is a guess, but my sense for leadership in your quartet is that you're following your first violin or the theme. So when there was a theme over here, felt like everybody was following the cello. Is that right? And it's okay. There's no one perfect way for leadership. I've been in 3 high-level professional quartets. Everyone did this differently. But I think for the Miró Quartet, we've started to find something that we feel can have a really big impact, at least at the opening stages of building a quartet, and just to give some organization. And that is actually, we take as much of the leadership as possible away from the thematic material. And the reason for that is the thematic material has to deal with the thematic material. And so they're already busy and we're all listening to them. So if they then have to lead and manage everything else that's going on over here, well, now they're doing everything, and we've got 3 other people over here who could really do a lot. The other thing that we take a look at a lot is just roles. So I don't think we have time to do all of the roles, but take the cello as an example. So we asked the question, well, why is the cello here? What's the role of the cello? What are you doing for us so that we keep a cello in the string quartet? So what do we look to the cello for? Silence. You feel that?
Oh, he knows.
Usually the cello, it has the bass line, and also a lot of the time it'll have the rhythmic.
Yeah.
It'll have the subdivision.
Oh, I love it. So he's saying bass line, which would be the harmonic function or the shape of the phrase, right? And then you said rhythm. Now, I think you have a lot of rhythm. If we were to think about roles here, a lot of times you do the larger rhythm, right? Like chuck, 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 chuck. So you're the larger rhythm, which gives us a role for the inner voices, which is the smaller rhythm. What else? So those 2 great things. What else is the cello good for?
You mentioned something about bass lines, and he was talking about longer shape.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more than one thing we get out of the job of a bass line. What are some of the other jobs that the bass line provides, or what does a bass line provide to a group that we have to be mindful of?
Anybody can answer.
Anyone can answer.
Anybody in the audience.
I saw you guys doing an exercise at the beginning to warm up that has a lot to do with things that a bass line provides.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So you can adjust your tuning to it.
Yes, in fact, I think we should be adjusting our intonation. The bass line is the fundamental base of any intonation work that we do. So that's important.
That's awesome. And you're also the lowest voice, right? So do we build intonation to the lower voice a lot of the time? What about sound? Do we build sound to the first violin or to the bass? To the cello?
Blend
oh my
and
gosh,
sound.
look at all these things you're responsible for.
I mean, that's a lot for the bass line, right?
Anything else? Any ideas from the audience? What else is a cello good for? Direction. Oh my gosh. I also find if you go soft, we have to follow. Because if we stay loud and he goes soft, then it feels very awkward for the rest of us. So in some senses, you often can control that lower level of the quartet. So there's a lot going on there, which has a lot of leadership inherently in it without you actually doing anything. So if we activate that leadership, suddenly now leadership on sound is coming from the place where we're basing our sound on. Does that make sense? So we kind of look at each one of these and figure out how that can work. So in this particular opening, you actually do have all of the little rhythmic notes, right? And then the two of you are filling in, and she has a theme. Can we hear it once, just the three of you? So take us from the opening to your first fortissimo chord.
This is everything but first violin
and
theme.
You just get to relax. Isn't that great? After all those hours of practicing, you just get to chill out and see what happens.
Although we may ask you some questions about what you hear after they play, so. Do only that?
Great, yeah.
That's just only that. There's some interesting shifts of role in only those first few bars, which I think are really, really interesting. Can you guys maybe talk to us a little bit what's going on? So who's more in control, obviously, in the opening few bars?
Cello.
Yeah, because you have the short rhythm. You have the continuous eighth notes. For that element, you're in control, but who sets the mood and lets us know what the actual harmony is? Because, of course, our cello, how many notes does he get to play? How many pitches does he play in the first few bars? One. He only plays C for the whole few bars. We play a lot more.
Although 2 octaves of C.
2 octaves of C. So what is your role, middle voices, in this opening texture where he's playing the eighth notes, and what do you have control over in these first few bars where you're legato? What is your role, basically, is what we're asking you.
Setting the mood.
For sure. Because, for example, your E flat in the first bar is what shows us it's minor. And also, you're showing us that this kind of a mysterious element. What I like about this musically is there's kind of two different emotions going on. You're anxious, you have this running, almost heartbeat pattern, and you guys are not fast, but what do you have that adds to the mystery or excitement or drama of the first few bars? What do you guys have that in your parts?
What could be
special
in there?
Dynamic marking.
What could be in there that might add drama? What's it called?
The dynamics.
Yeah, and what is that?
Sforzando.
Sforzando.
Yes. So everyone has sforzandos in that second bar, but I really feel like it's our job as the middle voices to really lead to those sforzandos, because those sforzandos give us a sense of surprise, but they also outline dissonant harmonies that create kind of pain, drama, this feeling of anxiety or maybe sorrow. We're not sure. It's a mix. But that's really, I feel like, the middle voice's role, because you have the harmony above the C, and we might shift a little bit of your leadership idea. I feel like everyone's been looking to our tune to show where the sforzandos are, how much they are, whether we're shaping to them or not shaping to them. But I feel like if in reality we would prefer the lower voices to be showing that, so the group has a unified feeling on each of these sforzandos, and you don't have to worry about showing them. I mean, could we try that once,
let's
just in
try
the
it.
opening few bars?
Yep.
Where you really feel like you're leading the drama, the shape, the sforzandos.
And we'll quickly tidy up one other thing that I think could help. So when we look at leadership, if we're just leading the whole group, sometimes it gets washed out.
That's right.
So we actually like to look at, okay, who's our main leader and who are they leading? So it's very specific. So in the inner voices, and we'll just move through this and we'll maybe talk about it with a later group, we generally have lower voices lead. Why? When you think about doing octaves, who do you have lead? The lower voice, right? There's a different speed of attack. There's a little bit more leadership in the sound, just like we talked about. So I'm wondering if you can lead our violist and if you can lead him. But the agreement works. You get to say, this is where we're going, and you get to say, well, how about this? And he gets to say, oh, that's great, let's do that. Or, oh, that's such an awesome idea, we're not going to have time for that right now. And he keeps going. And so there's an agreement between the two of you that you're going to push against him, and he's going to say whether he can do that or not. Does that make sense? And you're still thinking about what's going on over here, and if you need something, you can decide to partner with either one, but probably with her, right? So the same relationship here. It's like, oh, if you want something, you're like, hey, can we do this? She's like, no, 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 I don't have time for that. He's doing that. And then you hop on board, okay? So the focus really becomes here, and then you start to measure, okay, who needs support one way or another, okay? Can we try it?
I really like that. I like how you have a very clear idea of which one of the sforzandos is more or less, how quickly they lead. I could really tell that. Now that we've done it once, could our cellist and our second violinist, now that you know a little bit of what she's about to show, let's do it one more time, and can you try to lead it with her as opposed to reacting to her? So you could feel her crescendos, maybe you can do a little bit more. You could feel where she was leading, maybe you anticipate it. So you're sort of taking ownership of the idea she just heard, and everyone starts leading that. But you still feel like you have that extra 1% feel of leadership for the shape. I love what this did to the sound, by the way. We'll try one more time. I would love for the opening first note to be really together. And if we're giving that 1% of leadership to you, perhaps, because you have ba 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 ba, I think we just need to make sure we're all aware that he's going to initiate and that we breathe and cue with him to start really well together. That was a lot better. That was a lot better. I would love to feel that kind of strength of leadership where you all feel like your roles are important when we bring her back in to play the opening. I just observed, I feel like we're really used to just having her play a pickup to the downbeat of the first bar, and we also just play with her. But the reality is, I wish you could even cue her before she starts. So for example, if she's giving her pickup, you're already saying, I control the eighth notes. No matter what tempo she shows, you're gonna sound right, right? So that same feeling that the three of you are in control and she's just along for the ride can happen even when she plays her pickup at the beginning. Can we try that just to work on those first few bars? And be sensitive to her, but don't lead any less than you just did. I'd rather she feel like, yeah, the train's driving where it wants to go and I can just ride. That was good.
Awesome.
Did feel it's.
Oh, look, they're clapping.
I feel like
yes!
it sounds. Yeah, good clap. I mean, I want to hear what my colleague thinks. I feel like it sounds so much more convincing. I feel like the quartet's immediately unified from the very first note that you play together. How do you feel first violin playing with a group that's now empowered this way? What does it feel like to you? It cannot. Maybe it doesn't feel good. Maybe it feels good. Talk to us a little bit.
The sound is like more focused.
Uh-huh. So there's more focus.
Does it feel easier or harder?
Easier.
Easier. Yeah, how about that? You made her life easier. What else were you going to say?
unified.
More unified?
Yeah, definitely.
What I like is I feel like this is freeing up our first violinist to spend more energy on the details of her own line and how she wants to shape maybe little nuances that really are only her business because she's the fancy theme person. And I feel like Beethoven's crafted the quartet in such a way that all four of our roles are equally important. And when the three of us invest in the lower voices in this way, it enables us all to have a voice and a part of the quartet sound. And there's just so much more energy when we feel like we can actually contribute 100%. I did feel a little bit when you guys started like, oh, we might cover her up. Maybe I'll just I'm not sure. And that doesn't actually help her, right? She actually feels better when we're contributing 100% with the way we understand our roles to work.
Yeah, I want to just take, we've got like 4 minutes
not
left,
too
I
much.
think. And could I play once? And could you stand right here? I just want to take over the part for a second, because the last thing I feel is you're being very nice. And I think John and I, correct me if I'm wrong, we do not think of ourselves as nice or supportive. We think of ourselves as, well, there is only one second violinist on this stage. There's only one person who's going to play that part, and I have to play the heck out of that part and do what my role needs.
Right.
And I am not going to bend about being nice. Now, I will listen to information, I will adapt, but you need to be clear and you need to have strength and quickness to the information you're telling me, because we don't have words and we've got split seconds of time before they know something's happened. So I just want to play once and see, I'm sorry, I just put this on the microphone, see what it feels like to play with you. Cool. So, how was that?
That was a lot faster.
I know, we got past it. I think that was me. But what do you
how
notice?
did you feel? Yeah, and what did you notice him playing with you?
I felt a lot more energized, like a lot more direction and peace.
I noticed you having to look at him a lot, more than you were looking at your colleague. But I also noticed that he was sending you info like, I want to do this eighth note with you in the first bar, this way. I want to do this fourth sound in the next bar, this way. Oh, are you ready to do this with me? And looking for that information as well as sending out the intention got both. I couldn't see your eyes as much, but our cellist and our violist, you were looking across the group so much more than you did with your own group. And I think it's, what I want to emphasize, it's not just, you should be looking around at everyone all the time. That's not really it. Or you should be more aware of everyone all the time. Yeah, but all of us have to actually have enough intention. What I would say I saw from Will's performance is there was a lot of intention with every single bar to do what he was talking about. This is what the second violin roll is right now on this note. And I'm sending that attention to my partner or to the group or to anyone who needs it. And that got attention back, right? So some of it is, we were talking at the beginning about roles. You have to have a good idea of what it is your role is at every bar. You're not just playing the part. And once you have that, you can create an attention, an interaction between all four of you that makes the music much more compelling. And there's suddenly so much more. Can you imagine if all four of you were playing with as much energy and intention?
We're doing it, John.
You want to do it?
2 minutes now.
And we're going to raise the performance level to another, exponential level of exciting.
And we're going to pop you back in, and then we'll have to be done. Did you notice also, I didn't look at her. When you started, everybody looked over there, and I was like, that's where my information is going to come from. I am going there. Now, I can see her, I can feel her. That's all present, but my focus was there because he's got all the eighth notes.
Right.
And I don't know what you're going to do, but it's going to be fun, and I'm going to hear it. but that's where the information is. So try it out, see what happens. You probably have to watch her. Good luck.
All pretend you're Will Fedkenheuer.
Oh
right
my
now.
gosh. Here we go. That's it.
Good.
You feel the difference? Yeah. Now, thank you. We're going to do that quickly. Now, bring her into that. So if she doesn't come up to that level, keep going. Show her what it is. And we would love to hear what that was like for you, but we'll talk about that at lunch.
And I do just want to underscore to the audience and to the quartet, we're working so much on inner voices and lower voices. You're sounding better and better and better, First Violin. I mean, I feel like you're being inspired by what's happening, and you're able to relax and respond, and it makes you sound great. You're playing great. Your playing is actually changing because of the support you're getting.
Yeah! Awesome.
Good.
Bravo.
We should wrap up at that, right?
So our hope, and you'll see us work with other groups, is this is sort of the seeds for you growing your own dynamic inside of here. And I'm sure we'll talk about different elements of this type of leadership over the next 2.5 hours or however long is left. But take this and make it your own. So like this is built for our personalities and the type of repertoire that we've played, but take it for your personalities. You know, maybe you really want to lead something, go for it, ask for it, but keep the discussion alive so then you get this kind of clarity, and then keep this type of energy for the group because it changes our experience out there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bravo.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you for letting us work with you.
Well, are you gonna be all right with one stand, or?
Yeah, I'll put this up for us. I'm just getting it connected here.
I have another one.
I think this will be fine. This is Schumann next, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
When you're ready, get set up and whatever you need to do, and then maybe just announce yourself. And then
We'll get you another stand, no problem.
Oh, because they're not playing Beethoven. Sorry, I forgot.
I'll just.
We have Beethoven, they have Schumann, we have papers for ourselves.
I mean, if you want those.
I have a score, actual score.
You have a score?
Yeah.
Can you get an actual score for him, please?
Yes.
So while we're waiting for this,
Yeah.
well, I was gonna ask you, since you sit on the outside,
Yeah.
you wanna tell the students why?
So in our quartet, it's first violin, things up so that we get a different perspective on what's going on. We get a different buddy for ourselves. But this is like 8 years ago now, John? Yes. We were coming back in January, and we were trying to deal with some issues. One of the issues, John used to sit on the outside, and John's viola needs a direct projection, so he really needs to sit facing out to the audience. And we were having challenges keeping in touch with John because that was taking a lot of his focus just to play out there. I was sitting in between, so it used to be first violin, just like you're sitting. Actually with the cello on the inside. So I was having issues. If I would do something, both my first violinist and my cellist would come up. And they were so connected to me and enthralled with what I was doing, everybody would follow it. And so I couldn't actually help balance between the two, even with my clarity. And there were also different things with performance nerves and feeling the heat from the audience. So I'm very comfortable with that. So I said, well, let me sit over there. That'll get me away from first and cello, and I can be more clear. Let's put John in the middle there so that you can face out better, and let's put the cello and first violin together because then you can just communicate with each other without anybody in the way. And we did it for a week and tried it out in concert, liked it. We just did it for a month, liked it, and then we had a bunch of huge concerts for the next 6 months, but we just committed to it. And loved it. And then within those 6 months, actually we ended up at a library in Oberlin where the librarian was super excited because she had a book of 1800 of the 19th century quartets, so quartets of the 1800s. And they had sketches and two surprising things. What was it, like 40% of the quartets were all female. That was surprising. And about 95% of the quartets when sketch playing were sitting in this seating that we do. It balances out the violins, gives you your own space, and provides a lot more diversity for the sound. So that's why we've done it, and stuck with it. And you're ready. Go for it.
We're the Kintsugi Quartet, and we'll be playing the first movement of Schumann's Opus 41, number 1, and we won't be taking the repeat.
Rule in the Miró Quartet that when you hear the sound of applause, it means that people are appreciating what you're doing, and it's our job to show that we appreciate their appreciation. So it makes us feel good, too. So even in any kind of setting like this with a class, I do feel like after a performance, we should always get used to bowing to the audience. It's not a formal thing. It's a way for us to say thank you for listening, and thank you for showing the appreciation that we have.
Yeah.
I want to work on sound and dynamics.
Awesome. Sound and dynamics.
So This is a lovely quartet. It's a trickier quartet, I think, than maybe it seems on first glance. All the parts are a little awkward, and Schumann was a great pianist. He was not a great string player, but he had a wonderful conception in all three of these quartets for how to really use the sound of the quartet. He was a great vocal composer and knows how to write beautiful singing lines. One of the things that I think would help your performance of this first movement, really all the sections, but we might spend more time on the first section because it's the easiest one to do with this, is being aware of the difference between piano and pianissimo. Not only that they're very different dynamic levels, but they're very different emotional levels. And then finding ways as a quartet to make a beautiful singing piano where we feel that we're opening up the sound of the group and of our instruments to the audience, and then also finding ways to make a pianissimo sound that isn't repressed feeling. This is not the most comfortable stage to play on, and I mean, am I correct? I felt like some of the softer dynamics, you felt a little bit like the sound wasn't really coming out. You couldn't really make the sound that you wanted. But this is a great space to practice kind of opening up soft sounds. And I think one of the things to maybe underscore as we start to work on this is dynamic markings are not just volume markings. In fact, they really aren't volume markings. I mean, they kind of are, but they're more character markings and quality markings than they are like turning the volume knob down, on your Wi-Fi set that is a 1 or a 10. Piano can be just as full, even pianissimo can be just as full as a louder dynamic, but the quality needs to be completely different. And I think that might be something I'd love to work on with the opening.
Yeah, just a quick adjustment. Were you here when we first worked with the first group? Or were you off? Okay, great. So we did a little exercise, and John, I think we're going to do the same thing.
Yes, I think it's a great one.
As soon as the four of you came and sat down, you started rearranging the stands. Did you notice that? And so audience members who've been here, how's our cellist? You see how the cello, we talked about how sound comes out of the cello. It's going right there. And these are the people that you're here for. And so actually changing a little bit and actually coming and putting your sound more out there. And the same thing, actually with the inner voices, it worked fairly well, but we pivoted just a little bit around so that the two of you, and this will be just different, with the viola, you're coming out in some of the bigger places, but just in a general sense, your sound is just a little bit more muted because it's heading back this way. So if you actually just set up a little bit more head-on for the quartet, and a little similar thing, and we didn't mention this in the other quartet, but actually here, if you stand up for just a minute, if you just sit just a little bit dead on, now your sound, and we talked about, you can talk to your friends, your colleagues, just about how this completes a circle now for us. You want to watch, we didn't say this, the end of her bow and the tip of your scroll, but it just starts to change how sound projects for the quartet. So I just wanted to hop in and do that since you're going to work on sounds.
Should he move a little bit?
A little bit over here. I was coming around. So also with the first violinist, a lot of the times you were playing into the group. And as soon as you do that, we lose the direction of your sound. So we're big believers in being able to play into the group, but if you actually set yourself up on a more dynamic, so that when you come back, let's try that. When you come back to normal, you're more situated out here. You can still turn in. You can't turn in as far, but you have that communication line. But when you're not thinking about it, you're projecting directly into the audience. So it gives a little more open face to the quartet. So
it looks good. The other thing, thinking about sound, I feel like actually you're going to sense each other's sounds better in this setup than when you were playing at each other, and that's going to help you find the group sound in this drier space. Yeah. Would you guys mind trying the very opening, which is only piano, right? That's not the softest dynamic or the most intimate dynamic of the very opening. In fact, we're not, just to look ahead, he doesn't give us a pianissimo until, what bar is that? That's 24, yes. So I would say just thinking that the entire opening prelude up until bar 23 is going to be piano or more, which is, in my character world, maybe more expressive, pleading, sad, and less, I got a lot of sort of distant or maybe even a little afraid in your projection of the opening. And I would just say the best way to do that in a singing way is just, well, now I'm stuck, is just to make sure that we're always, I'm using, I'm not playing very loudly, but I'm making sure that I'm pulling the bow through all of this phrase. Could you guys just try that, thinking of opening up the bows and filling out the sound in a comfortable piano? Yeah, that was good. What do you think, listening to that?
I think it's already getting better. I mean, the question that I start to then ask is, so what is the emotional character that you are after? And we usually try and find 2 or 3 words that that are pretty specific. So if I were to ask you, what is your emotional character of this opening, of what you just played, what words would you come up with? Have you talked about it? What words have you had? Longing. Yeah?
The first thing that comes to mind is melancholy.
Melancholy. Awesome. These are great words. And then I might dig a little bit more. So longing for what? Because I could long for the ice cream that my dad didn't buy when I was 12 that I really, really wanted, and I've never been back to that ice cream store, and I still want the quartet to get that ice cream. I could be longing for lost love. I could be longing for my father who passed away. So what kind of longing are we thinking?
More of like a reminiscent longing, like looking back on a memory or a time of life.
Looking back on a memory or a time of life, and what might that memory or time of life be? So that tells me you're older. Are you in your 40s? Are you in your 60s, your 80s?
I'd say probably later in life.
So 80s? And what timeline are you looking back on? Are you looking back at your 20s?
I would say maybe even closer to childhood.
Uh-huh. And what are you reminiscing about? Like, is this you playing with a parent or a favorite uncle, or is this you sitting alone in a field of flowers? You see how it can be different. And the reason we get pretty specific on this is you are not going to be able to use words. So if we step on stage and we say, okay, this is longing, John could be thinking about
one kind, right.
And I could be thinking about the ice cream.
Right.
And so I'm going to be a different character, where those discussions internally in the quartet, you each will have your own perception and experience of it, but we want to try and get it to handle the pressure of the moment. Yeah?
And then also in rehearsal, if we have a clear image we're trying to bring to the audience, we can also bring that as we're working. Well, okay, how are you making that happen? Are you doing this kind of vibrato or that kind of bow or whatever? So it's good to also have something to focus us artistically so we can make choices afterwards. Could we come up with a clear image and work on that? So it
we're
gets
in
really...
our 80s, we're reflecting back on childhood. Just create a memory for us, or somebody else if you have something
anyone.
to feed.
What do you feel like? You guys all have ideas, I can tell.
Okay, here's one idea. You're in your 80s, right? And you have like a sibling or something, and then like the sibling died.
I love that. That's great.
This is where we are.
And then what are you remembering? Are you remembering the childhood with the sibling, or?
Yeah. Yes.
But you're sad because you have loss,
Yeah.
and you're also older, so there's that element of reminiscence. but then you're remembering something happy in the past. Is that the idea?
I guess it's a mixture of emotions.
A mixture of
actually.
emotions.
So that actually opens up a field, right? It's like, oh, okay, we all have a concept of what siblings might be like. You know, if you're 80, we're talking about 80 years ago and what culture was like. So it gives a lot of actual specificity to that and room for expression inside of it. Now, you also had said melancholy. Does that relate into here, or do you want to keep that word? Do you want to change it out?
Yeah, I think it fits with what I'm kind of thinking in my head.
Yeah, cool.
Do you guys want to try that? Could you try playing the section that we just played? I guess we got up to, yeah, maybe with the first sforzandos happened.
Yeah.
Can we do that? And can you try to actually tell that story through your playing to each other? So let's just see, without talking about anything technical, let's just see that it's like you're four people telling that story, telling that image you just came up with. 80-year-old, lost your sibling, remembering childhood. I like that.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice the difference? So just having that image, I'm going to make you guys do just a little analysis of what just happened. So what changed in your playing now from how you played it through before, based on this image? Specifics.
It felt a little bit slower.
It was quite a bit slower.
Felt, for me personally, a little heavier.
There was a heavy, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
What else did you guys notice was different because of this image that you all shared?
I think leading into certain accidentals or chord tones differently.
Right, I felt you guys shaping the phrase where you had those expressive notes in the phrase. You were definitely shaping them very differently from before. What else was different? I noticed some things. I noticed that overall the vibrato choice was different from how you just played it the time before. Could you tell me how your vibrato might have been different? You didn't even think about it, but it happened, right? And that's part of why I'm doing this, is we have images that make stuff happen.
And you can kind of break these down, like vibrato can go faster or slower.
Right.
It can be wider or narrower. So on those two levels, what did you do with your vibrato? Did you notice?
I think it was wider.
I noticed a lot of wider vibrato.
And was it a little slower or faster? Slower.
Yeah, definitely was slower. And what about your bow? You guys had a different bow sound. You still were more open piano than when you started a long time ago, but compared to the time you played through, what was different about your bow? Yes. There was more of a feeling of pulling the sound, even though it wasn't loud, kind of being in the sound. Well, I think before there was kind of a little bit of kind of skating through the sound, if I could use that expression. Again, none of this is good or bad, but now we're noticing what happens when we're kind of embodying this really specific image. And that means that we could go back, for example, in rehearsal and play it again and all be more conscious of what we're doing to make that image more clear.
We've got like 3 minutes, but I wanted to give an example of something that can also start to expand that we might do. So for example, when you start, da-dee-da-da, very minor feeling, right? But play me, I think it's bar, oh shoot, everything's moving around here. Bar 8. Well, let's play bar 7.
Yeah, bar 7.
But I want you to bring out bar 8 and 9 and just change. So we just talked about some tools here. The emotion or the memory, what we're experiencing, maybe this is the ice cream part, right? I'm searching for the ice cream people. But see now that you've been made aware of the tools you were using, how you might change it as things develop, right? Is that okay to just start right on 7? Let's do that.
Yeah. We're trying to get you to listen to what happens harmonically here and how that changes your emotional picture. And it's that you're looking at. So
and then look at where we are now.
Mm-hmm. Yes. How do you feel? I mean, just to keep going with this, when we get to that last statement in the cello, can you just play the very last statement you just played, that last bar? And before you have la dee da dee da dee da. How does that feel emotionally different than, could you play your opening bar? Than the opening bar. It's up to you. How do you feel different about that cello?
It feels happier. What's another word?
Happy's good. We're going to do the will thing. So
warm.
Happy about what?
It feels like it has more satisfaction in it.
Uh-huh. In our story of loss and the lost sibling from the past, what could be making us a little happier or satisfied in that story? Yes. Yeah. You think, oh, I still have the memory with me. I thought they were gone. La-dee-da-da. They will always be with me. La-dee-da-da. That element of just changing the story makes that really meaningful.
This then can play if we keep expanding it. So we're looking at harmonic changes, right? One other thing that's really annoying in this quartet is all of the hairpins, right? So if you combine that with the emotional character, what does this hairpin express versus this hairpin, and how might you use the tools that we have, contact point or blend or vibrato, all of these things, to express one versus another. One might have a faster bow, one might have a slower bow where you would really pull the tension. But that's then where you can start to create slightly longer lines and also just a much more sincere character. You're already doing so many beautiful things that now you have the ability to have discussions like this and take it to the next level with what you're doing with your quartet.
Can I just underscore that maybe I would encourage you to create a story like this for the entire movement with vivid images that all of you can contribute to. I'm just so struck by how differently you played the opening, just having that. And maybe just to share a quick story, the Miró Quartet, when we first learned Schubert-Rosamunde Quartet a long time ago, we were very young. We were already had won competitions and were studying at Juilliard, and we weren't happy with how we were playing that movement. No amount of intonation work or technical stuff was making it better. We actually had a coach from the LaSalle Quartet, Henry Meyer, who was like, I don't know your story. And we spent 1 or 2 days just coming up with really writing a story with clear characters on every bar, and it made it so much easier to play the piece. It made it more meaningful, but it actually was better in tune. And it was more together. All the things we had been working on with technical things fell into place with us just really connecting with our emotions in a unified way. So it's a great tool to use all the time, and it's not just a tool to use at the beginning or not a high-level tool. It's a tool you can keep on using. In fact, maybe the strongest tool you can use for your whole life as a professional.
Prepping last week for the Beethoven Cycle, we revisited our stories and refined them.
Yep.
And so it's something that's constantly a part of our rehearsal process. In leading up last night before the concert, there were a couple, we were like, wait, is this the Jolly Dude? What is this? I can't remember. Refresh, and then we revisit the discussion and refine it further. So, bravo, thank you.
Thank you for playing this for us.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Very good.
Are we back to Beethoven now?
Yes, we are.
Awesome. Which one?
Serioso.
Quick. Which movement?
That's the first movement. Definitely will be quick.
Bravo. This is one of my most exhausting quartets. Because, and for those of you who haven't played it, I mean, I don't know, John, whether you feel, so I've played all the quartets here and all the quartets here and a number of them there. But this particular quartet requires so much of the two inner voices that it's like, that's it, I'm done for the night. Partly because, you know, in these roles you switch so much already, but this is like switch for the entire thing at an intensity level that's just above most things. And you're doing just a phenomenal job on that. Did you want to add anything?
No, I agree with that. I would say particularly for the second violin in this quartet, you have a really unique role in all the different voices. All the different movements.
All the different voices.
Yeah, as you
I mean,
do, so you have so many
voice.
different voices in every movement. It's crazy.
I was thinking the first thing, even though we've been working on sound, the first thing I might love to grab is just sound.
I think so.
And then see where that leads us. Does that sound okay to you?
Yeah, I'm really interested in creating a better and more unified quartet sound in the fortissimo.
Yeah, me too. And I was thinking of maybe starting just with the cello.
I think that would be great.
And maybe in that section at the very end, where you do that with the first violin.
Yes, that section also.
How am I doing
thought
there?
was
I'm
sort
good.
of
So
good starting
I'm
point.
wondering, where is it? Yeah, I, letter I. So is it Tyler?
Yes.
Yes. Tyler, I want you to imagine this is Carnegie Hall. All right? And everybody is here to hear you. We're all supporting you. And you've got fortissimo as a solo cellist in Carnegie Hall, spotlights. Nothing else is going to be played. You're just going to walk on stage, bam, this is it, and then you're out. You know, you go party. So can you play it once? And let's just hear what that sounds like. Great. That's awesome. That already sounds so much more alive than what I heard you do when the quartet was playing. Does it feel that way to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So
things going on, but
I think as a quartet violinist, I want you playing this way all the time. It's like, I want you owning this. Now, there's a couple things I think we could add to it, and we'll see what John also has to say. In Beethoven, are there any dots on this? I'm going to look at my own score here as well. Are there dots? Or what does the markings look like?
I believe, you guys are playing off of, it's like an IMSLP score.
And even in this one,
from the school library,
so
old edition, yeah.
There's hats in the but now in the
it's also the old score.
There's no hats on that in either your part or in the score, right? And so with Beethoven, these markings become really, really crucial. They're what we have. And with any composer, actually, we try and figure out what were they meaning by that. So here, could have written hats, could have written dots, could have written accents, but didn't, and then gave you these sforzandos. So we also want to establish a language. What does a sforzando mean versus an accent? What would you say? What's the difference between a sforzando and an accent? Anybody? Everybody's like, oh no.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it's a good thing to talk about for every composer. What is the difference, do you think?
I think it could also play into the idea of, like, you were mentioning in the last group that the piano doesn't have to be a piano, it can have a full sound and more of a character or gesture.
So what would the character or gesture of an accent be versus a sforzando? You see how she did that? She was like, oh, I think this could be it, but I'm not going to give an answer. Good quartet player right there.
And there's no right answer, but just what do you guys think? You guys are playing the sforzandos actually in a certain way. So just tell us about, for example, first violin and cello, where you're playing the passage he's talking about at I. You have sforzandos. What are you thinking about when you see the sforzando in each of those notes?
It should maybe be a bit like fuller and rounder in sound. Like, I having more to do with like the whole note as opposed to just the articulation at the beginning.
That's a great idea.
Right.
So yeah, actually, if you were singing or speaking some of the eighth notes, how would you speak it so that I could maybe hear what the sforzatos sound like?
Maybe some kind of ba sound or something that is.
So if we were to sing ba
Could
ba
you-
ba beep, ba ba beep,
Yeah.
ba 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 ba, what would that? Sing it for us. Ah, cool.
And so I hear you leaning into the middle of the note, so there's a little more emphatic middle of the note, right? But I also hear you doing something at the beginning of the note too, right? You're not doing exactly the same start as the notes without the sforzando. Is there a difference? What would the difference be?
Maybe that there's more clear articulation at the beginning of, of this word song.
Could you speak it that way with a more clear articulation? How would you do that, speaking wise? Interesting. Okay, so this is a good exercise. Can I jump on this a little bit? We like to talk, we like to speak through articulations so we have a clearer idea of what we're trying to aim for rather than already start with, well, I'm going to grab the bow like this or I'm going to use this stroke, because that's kind of abstract and it's also not so musical. It's also sometimes doesn't actually focus things as much as having an idea in your ear what it sounds like.
It can divide you more than bring you together.
For sure.
But once you're together, then you can use that kind of language
course.
to refine what you've got.
We like the idea that notes all have a beginning, middle, and an end. Just like a syllable in speech has a beginning, middle, or an end. So I could make a note that goes bomb, and ba is a certain kind of articulation, ah is a certain middle, and an ending is a certain specific end.
Or a ba, or a ta, or a ka, or a ma, all has a different beginning.
Even whop. I mean, we sometimes make notes, yeah, we can make notes that go whop. But in this situation, you're using mostly ba and ba. I mean, do you think that that's the sound for every single one of the notes, sforzandos and everything? I mean, if we're just playing around with our imagination here, what syllables would, could we come up with that sound like what you're thinking?
Let's just do the first bar of 131. Let's do
Yeah,
bar
131.
So I'm not going to sing it.
Yeah, you guys speak it. Either of you could speak it the way you're imagining it.
I would think of it like a ya, kind of ba-ba-ya.
Yeah, okay.
Ya, da, 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 da,
Ah.
ya, da, da.
And you hear he's using da 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 da, and you were singing ba 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 ba.
Right. Those are
which
different.
already starts to create different sound languages now
Right.
that we're taking into context with John's.
And neither's wrong or right,
Yeah.
but it shows what you're hearing differently. Could you actually do it once, do it convincingly, just do a couple of bars? You were talking about 131 with your ya
Entirely.
and dot.
Sing it or
I don't care about pitches, but could you speak it with those
Yeah,
syllables so we know what the note shapes are?
da da ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da da.
So I like how clear you are about the articulation. This is a great use of the exercise. I'd love it also if your voice could show the phrasing. Are all of the notes going to be exactly the same? Dot, 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 dot. Can you show me with the syllables and the gesture in your voice how you want to phrase those few bars? Maybe you could you do 4 bars of it for me?
Yeah.
For me, that looks like it's 1, 3, 1 for 4 bars.
4
Is that
bars, yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Da da ya da 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 ya da da.
Good, good, good. We're staying away from the bars that have 2 sforzandos right now, okay? So we're going to do four of them.
Do you notice that he's working it out as he does it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like the first bar he really had, he was like, I got it. And then as you kept going, there were a little, oh, I didn't think about that. So I'm wondering if you want to just do it one more time.
Yeah. This is something that we practice. Like this is a tool we'd use if you said, for example, hey, or what I would imagine in rehearsal, what we're trying to get you guys to learn now, is you two being like, we have to play this together. How are you thinking of it? And you're like, I think I'm thinking it da-da-yatta, da-da-yatta. Could you speak the 4 bars so I get an idea of how you're doing that? And then you get a chance to think about it and try it. And you're like, oh, that's what he thinks.
And in your head, you might be thinking, that's crazy.
Right.
But at the same time, part of your role there is to listen and then see what you can grab and see how that might work. So you're learning, adjudicating, and trying to figure out what parts might be really great.
And you're discovering it. You're discovering it with him because you're figuring it out. So that's
and the
okay.
2 of you are like, well, I didn't know that was going on at all. I got this part over here that I need to do now. So go ahead.
Let's not go further than 4
Yeah.
bars right now. I want to
Cool.
actually focus on just on shaping those first 4 bars that we're doing. Did you understand how did you feel about that? Like hearing him do it? Like, was it clear? Did it show you things?
Yes.
And what did you understand? Like, what did you get from that exercise listening to him do it?
Just a slightly different like concept and sound, because we've actually worked on this, but in the context of bow stroke, and is it off or is it on?
Right.
Much? And so this is.
We're taking the instruments out of it now. I mean, this is something also just to throw to the audience and to the quartet. Lots of times, the instruments and the technique of playing them gets in the way of our creativity, and it tends to be the thing that we go to first because we've learned all these techniques, but until we have an idea of what we want it to sound like, and until the two of you have a shared idea of what you want it to sound like, we actually don't know what the right technique is. And just to be kind of underscoring of that, the cello, though similar to the violin, ain't the same. It isn't exactly the same. And what he'll need to do technically to sound the same as you won't necessarily be exactly the same. And also people are different, and the way we play our instruments are different. So even if you matched everything technically exactly, it still might not sound the same, and then that won't add up to anything musically if you don't have an idea that you're trying to communicate first. So I think that's what we're doing with this exercise.
And so a couple things that I'm noticing as you're singing versus when you first played, both in the quartet and then on your own, is that first sort of da da yatta da 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 is sort of more of a stop, and then you go down and circle around. Whereas in the second bar, da da yatta dee da da da, you're using it to propel you forward.
I heard that too.
So the first one has more of a yatta yatta da da yatta, more of that, and the second one has da da yatta da 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 da.
Yeah.
And so then you can start to either build on that, because then the next one, in the third and the fourth ones, I hear you not quite as clear. So it could be da da ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da dee da ya da da da. So we start to get, and you hear I'm trying to use your syllables to imagine how you might follow your idea through. Do you hear that now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you try it one more time? Just those 4 bars, and focus on showing us with your speaking exactly what Will wanted to hear that's different.
And an exercise that might be coming is for all of us to then sing his idea with him.
Yeah.
So those of us who are listening to him and taking this in, also be kind of logging it for yourself, because we might try that. We'll see what happens. Go ahead.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Could you do the exercise once? I'm curious, now that you've listened, and your parts are similar but not exactly the same, could you try speaking it with the da-da-ya and see if you can show what you might be thinking about this line? And then we'll have the two of you do it together.
Yeah.
So you try using his syllable idea and then see what you'd add to it. So you chose to do yatta, yatta, yatta for every syllable, for every group of 2 notes, and you're only using ya on the sforzando. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that a conscious choice?
No.
Okay. Do you want to try one more time? Then
It gets confusing.
He's using da on all the notes
Da,
that
da,
don't have a
ya,
sforzando,
da, da,
and
da,
he's
da.
using ya only on the notes with a sforzando. Great. And then we were listening to how he, our cellist, was shaping each of those 4 bars slightly differently based on where the notes were going up and down in the landscape. Do you want to listen to him do it one more time? And then maybe you can do it with him. You want to try it, cellist? Good. You want to try it together and see if you can really unify it. Speak it to each other and see if you can really unify how you're shaping. I think that's already much more unified. I notice a lot more, we used this word earlier, intention in each of the different notes and each of the different bars. Do you notice how, I'm going to point, but in bar 1, 3, 2, you are, I feel like you're both leading to the top middle of that bar, certainly more than the preceding bar, right? Because the notes go up and down. I feel like the third bar has different intensity, right? I wish we could, I hear a difference of intensity, but I'm not totally sure that we're convinced about how different it is. And the fourth bar, the pattern is different, right? What I miss, I don't want to sing it for you, but what I miss in the fourth bar is that there's a low note, a big jump, and then the last 4 notes don't go smoothly up or smoothly down like in the other bars. So I'd like to hear that in your shaping with your voice too. Can two of you try that one more time?
On the inner voice side of this, your part, ta, ta, it has to get on top or cut through this, right? And so part of this also in your understanding, taking in, is I'm thinking about, oh,
Right.
where do I really need to go after it because they're going after it? Where can I actually lay back? Or what kind of articulations might I need for our part to bring this together, but also take care of our part soaring over this?
Because every time they have a ya note is one of the notes that we change on, and we're going to have to blend into that. Could we do one more time with speaking, and then we'll maybe add them speaking? Would that make sense?
Let's do it. You give a cue.
I like that. That sounds really clear. That sounds like how you really want to shape.
Yeah. Yeah. I would add, I could use more of you in the singing.
Yeah.
So that now you're taking this on. And in the end, in rehearsal, you might do both. You might say, okay, now we got that. Why don't you sing it the way you naturally wanted to? In this situation, we'll just keep it rolling.
Yeah, right.
But let's add everybody now. Ba, da. And could we go back to I? Let's start at I. Da, 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 ba, 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 bum.
Singing?
Yeah, singing.
Pitches don't matter. We can use the way singing, but I don't really care about the pitch as much as the shape and the inflection, direction, articulation.
Who's going to give the cue?
I'll give it.
All right, Tyler. Yeah, do it one more time. It's interesting, right? So even in the ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, we have different things. So
yeah, we didn't talk about that.
We didn't talk about it. Can you just sing it once? Sorry, we're going with him just because we've been there. But can you just sing it once, those first 2 bars?
It's
Dabba
weird
dabba.
to find out like the right
Yeah.
song
Right.
to do it.
Ah, cool. So dabba dabba dab da 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 dabba da 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 ba 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 ba.
Yeah. Is it ba or da? I mean, both are good, but which one do we want? We can try one.
I'll say da this time.
Okay.
Dabba dabba da 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 dabba dabba da 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 da. All right. We'll just go with it. You ready? Dabba dabba da ba. Yep.
Good. Let's work on that. I think that's great. This is a great exercise. So what I would love is now that they're coming in with a different part, the shaping we wanted the 2 of you to work on, I want to hear even more of it. Because when there's something that's not that, it has to be really clear that you guys are doing what you're doing and doing it unifiedly. The other thing I'd like to try, just because we have to move along really quick, we talked about how your sforzandos match with them. Right now, they're going ya on all those sforzandos, and you're going ba.
Yes.
It's not right, it's not wrong. What that showed me is you think we're different than their sforzando, which maybe you are. I would love it once, if we're in the rehearsal process, I'd be like, well, what if we yad? Like, what if we join them in yad?
Yeah.
How can we ya and then play a long note? Is that possible? I don't know. So the other thing is he's starting with, at I, with dabba dabba da, right? A da sound. Can you show me where I is? I don't know where you are. Yeah, so I wonder if, I mean, I would just start out speaking by matching what they're doing when I do the same thing at the same time, and then decide if that's what I want.
Okay.
So I mean, could we try da, da, and then ya? Which is interesting because it's da on the downbeats and ya on the surprise downbeats. I don't know. I don't know if I like that or not. Can we just try that as a plan? Yeah.
Ready? Go for it, Tyler.
Oh, sorry.
It's interesting, right? It makes you very unified. I don't know if could you try something, if it weren't unified, what could you try that would maybe contrast with what they were doing? Is there another syllable or a start that you'd want to try that would be different?
My gut says ba, but that's.
Yeah, I feel like at least how we've been playing it is a little bit more rounded, and so like a more rounded sound.
Mm-hmm.
Like syllables.
Let's try it then.
And the thing I would focus on with that, if they're going to be ba on all their sforzandos, and you guys are choosing to be da or ya, I want to make sure the audience really knows that they're different.
And it's
right?
intentional.
And it's intentional, which is great. So that means you guys have to really focus on what is da and ya versus ba, right? Can we try that one more time?
Let's do it. And then we should get them.
Then we should go.
Cool. Awesome.
It's really different.
And I know you're all listening out here. Do you hear how it keeps changing? And there's different clarity to that. One of the things that we might, like, we'd probably work on this a little bit longer. Like, now that you've got the ba, how are you sustaining it? Is it ba or bam? Or where does that shape?
Mm-hmm.
But I think just in the essence of the time we have, let's actually just transfer it into the playing
Right.
now.
Play those
And
6
let's
bars
just see.
just like you spoke them.
We spent some good time fixing what it is that we're actually thinking and envisioning up here. Now let's take that into the instruments and see what happens.
Try to make the instruments sound like ba, da, and ya. Good. Can we do it a couple of times?
Yep.
So I would say I don't hear ya in your sforzandos. They don't. How would you make them sound ya? Da da ya.
To me, that's more of a horizontal.
Yeah, probably
Yes.
more and less vertical, more in the string a little longer,
So-
a little more, frankly, of a yank of the bow.
Yeah, and making sure you're in the string before you go rather than attacking on the move.
Could you maybe just try that? Maybe the two of you just try that from 131. Just try and do some yas without them. So we're trying to get our instrument to sound like what we ideally imagined. Good. So we
Yeah.
don't have a lot of time, but I like what this is sounding, the direction it would go in. And this is where, like, the other people in the group, you can be coaches for your colleagues and be like, okay, I want to sound like da da yada, da 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 yada, da 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 da. And then listen and coach them. Oh, should you stay in the string longer? Oh, maybe the dots are too short. Could you try this kind of stroke? Maybe it's a little too low on the bow, too high on the bow. But we're using that tactical coaching to get to the idea we imagined, the words or the syllables we came up with. And I think it would take a little time to work on that exactly. And then the same way with the buzz. You guys can work on the buzz alone, speak it, and then have your colleagues coach you.
Yeah. Should we play it one last time?
Yeah, let's play it
before
one
we
more
wrap?
time.
It feels much more specific
For
already.
sure.
And then we haven't had enough time to like bring it to that final place.
Yeah.
But this already is starting to find a better lock for each other. So let's try it one more time. Why don't we play to the end and see how it feels?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Good job.
Now, that already, just the work that we did, like when you were doing the da-da-da-da-da-da-da, we were thinking da-ba-da-ba-da. So there's much more unity already coming out. With that unity then, coming back to the first thing we were working on,
right.
sound, with that unity, your sound starts to blend and lock differently. So we get a much more cohesive sound, but again, also we can hear each one of you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it feels like it's a lot, like we really dive into the details in that, but actually the better and quicker that exercise becomes for the group, the more impact it can have fairly quickly for the quartet, for anybody's quartet.
For sure.
So.
It's not only a playing exercise, it's actually a listening exercise, and it's a thinking exercise, and it's an awareness exercise. So just doing it with your voices is making you hear each other and listen to yourselves differently, and all those things that Will's talking about, unified sound, convincing ideas, similar ideas, responsiveness, happen when that awareness level and intention level goes up. And you guys are doing that really, really great with a really difficult piece. This is a hard piece.
This is, so bravo and
yeah,
thank
great
you.
job.
Thank you.
We've enjoyed.
Thank you.
It goes by very fast, this piece. Bravo, bravo. We're going to get ourselves cooked up here. I actually think we can have them play more sections with just leadership. Because you guys got to hear the beginning of our class, right?
Yes, you've already heard a lot of the stuff we're talking about.
I was actually wondering if you would be up for playing for a minute.
Sure.
So, bravo. First of all, I said that something about Opus 95. I actually think as a quartet, this might be one of the most difficult Beethoven quartets. Not necessarily always for ensemble reasons, but each of your individual parts is one of the hardest individual parts. So to be able to navigate that in your own space and still be connected and say something is a true accomplishment, and you're already doing that. I think both of us, and we're just thinking about, at least what I was thinking about, was just the dynamics of leadership and how in different quartet roles you can really impact. And one of the things I was thinking about, as a second violinist, so I spent I don't know how many years, most of my years here, but I also spent 6 years as a first violinist and played a Beethoven cycle on that. And it's very interesting to me. It's really challenging to actually talk about, well, what is a second violinist? And I realized, like, nobody taught me, like, hey, you're a second violinist, boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. But as a first violinist, I got a ton of instruction and a lot of that. But these inner voice roles, I learned a lot from what I learned from violas, or what was given to violas. But also the second violin role is really quartet specific. So having been a second violinist in 2 different quartets, I can tell you that I was a very different second violinist in one than in another. And it shifts so much more than any other role in the quartet on a daily basis. So one of the things that I was thinking we could just do is actually just play.
Sure.
And show, and let's just see what we learn from it. Part of it is, I think, one of the greatest examples that we can learn from is just seeing other people do that role with people that we play with. I think the other important part of it, though, is a second violinist is only as great as the attention that any quartet player gives them. So your second violinist, as a second violinist, you have to demand that people listen to you, because if they're not, then you can't help them. But if you do bring the second violinist into your world, they will help you more than any other person in the quartet. So it's this little thing, because nobody ever out there is really totally listening to the second violinist. They're all distracted by the fancy stuff around, right? But in the end, the pivotal role that this place can play is also only determined by the attention that the 3 of you give it, and it's often the last part of the score that people are learning, right? And so it's all of these things are against you, but did you have anything to add?
The only thing I would add to that is that, to take what you just said one step further, is that in the end, however, all that idea of being affected by each other, having the role of the person who's maybe the most inside of the group, I always feel like when I sat in this chair, and then often my second violinist, I feel like you're the most in tune with what's really going on with everybody. You can feel the inside of the group better than anybody else can, which creates an incredible opportunity for the quartet to connect. Because when all of you connect with her, you're connecting with the quartet. When all of you connect, when she relates to you, you're actually relating to the quartet. So it's not just second violin is important, you should pay more attention. It actually is, I think, the easiest door to starting to open your awareness to the entire quartet, particularly in a piece like this.
I thought you were going to say the heart and soul, John.
No.
No.
The viola is the heart and soul of the quartet.
Of course, okay.
But the second violinist is the door to that heart.
I'm the door to the heart and
soul.
soul.
The door that we enter. But you guys get, what we're trying to say is that quartets really, and this is, I don't want to talk too much more because I want you guys to play more, because you're really in a great place to do different things. But it's so easy for you to be distracted by all the stuff you have to do. You have so much to do. And you can't pay attention to everything, but you can learn to connect to your partner here who's like, I'm helping you in this bar in this way. And you're like, yes, I have time for that. And that's bringing you into the quartet. Same thing with you at the beginning. Actually, could we do some at the beginning?
Let's. Well,
do you want to play at the beginning? Or?
Yeah, I was thinking the two of us could play for a minute. And part of the other power of the second violinist is what I said earlier. Not really many people are listening to you. So if you're not quite right, or if you're fixing things before they know about it, nobody knows because they're not listening to you. So I can be off or I can sound bad and it's hidden, but I can help everybody fix it before everybody out there knows. And I actually want you, both of you, to stay close because the information that you get in this sphere, yeah, you can come over here, I'll stay away from you, is going to be different. And maybe viola here? What do you think,
so you
John?
can feel those, you don't stuff in my chord. Just to say it, what he's talking about with second violin is primarily second violin, but a lot of it we share. You know, if I'm not playing a viola solo or a bass line, for example, I feel like a second violin partner in the opening of this. I don't feel like I have a viola role. I feel like I'm sharing whatever our second violin concept of the role is. Do you want?
Yeah, let's just play a little bit. Let's just see what happens. Awesome. Now, what are you noticing back there? What are John and I up to? What are we doing different or surprising? Or
I think just overall, like, commanding more control of the core of the group sound.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. How are we doing that? What are we doing?
I guess more intensity of connection with everyone and more like presence of sound.
Yeah. Are we flexing to everything they do? Are we like, oh, he wants to go there. Oh my gosh, yes, let's go there. Or am I like, okay, cool. Let's see if that works out for you.
Are we rigid and not yielding to them?
No.
But what I might say is, can you sense how we direct them? Sort of gently. How did you feel in the opening playing the solo with us like this? What was different about it? Not good or bad, but just what was different about it from playing it through before with your colleagues?
It kind of just felt like I had to listen to you more so that we could do what we wanted to do.
And so in some ways you felt a little more limited, is that correct? Or what did you think?
Sure. Like we were going, I was getting your idea.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So that's maybe a key thing.
Well, and a word I like to use is boundaries. We're all learning about boundaries in our life, right? So I'm establishing a boundary here with my partner, John, that in this opening, we're going to guide you because we have to fit in all our notes. So technically, you're not supposed to play until we do all the notes.
Right.
And then there's notes we play together, but we play more than you. Yeah. So we need some space to do that. And although you've got this beautiful theme, it'll sound better if I can play all my notes in a way that also makes my notes sound better, right? But at the same time, I'm really open to your ideas. And oh my gosh, you're in trouble. Let's help you out. So I've got boundaries that are established that have flexibility and permeability, and I'll jump when I need to. But at the same time, we're also taking care of this core of the group.
Can I add also, we continue our pair once you start playing the solo. So it's a pretty big difference to have the first violin not playing anything at the beginning at all, you're playing a solo, and then that switches to first violin playing the solo, and you need to join us. If we don't have a certain amount of commanding presence or idea, it's really hard to make that switch, right? It's a big switch in the group.
And you would hear it out there. Did you notice anything additional?
Yeah, I noticed more, like even like presence.
Yeah.
Not only like in the sound, but also like communicating with each other.
Yep. So we were much more physically present
Right, yeah.
along with the sound. Yeah.
Can I also just add, I mean, I don't know if you noticed it, but like Will and I don't always change, or Will and I, you and us, the second violin and the viola, don't always change at the same time. But I'm very aware of where he has a change and I don't. I'm very aware of when we have changes together. And I'm trying to include and also shape when we do things differently, as well as bring out things that are the same. So already, even in just our role, if we played it without them, I think you would hear a little more complexity and intention with what we're doing to each other.
I want to do it again, but I want to ask, what was it like for you?
Oh, it was great. I could just play.
Cool.
Really? Did you feel like you were leading, having to lead more before?
Oh, no.
Like-
Like before?
Yeah.
Before I don't know.
Because it's. I mean, I'm going to explore that just a little bit because you guys played very well, but it's interesting that you should feel that this was easier. Is it just because there's more energy coming from here and you feel confident?
It was an inch faster. And
Oh, that also was nice too, right?
and-
But and that's a good point
That's
too. Is
also
that
that,
he
yeah.
can't. If you come in on your entrance and it's not as fast as you want, there's nothing you can do to show that because we are in control of that. So that's also a takeaway too.
Now, I also feel like so what was interesting to me is when we played the opening, I felt like the strength that I expected, and then once you realized what we were doing here, you relaxed into it. And it's sort of like, oh, okay. But when you joined us, it felt a little bit like you were still trying to hold on, so there was a lot more resistance there. And I'm wondering, what happens if you just relax?
Let us take care
What
of
is
it
that
for
like?
you.
Because we have all the energy control, we have all the rhythmic control, we've got the bass line, and I've got the whole gang wrapped up here.
And you sound great, so just
And-
relax
Should I
and
trust-
play
should I
nice.
trust him?
Don't trust us. Actually, just to say that he should not trust us, but in this moment,
it's not
you'll be
about
fine.
trust. Now hold on, don't throw that one. No. And then even when we have our ta ya da da dee da da dee, I'm underneath you, right? So I'm playing a role for your sound that will give your sound more complexity, more beauty, more presence. But if you resist me, then
Don't
we're going to
resist.
fight, and you're not going to get any of the benefits of having a
Do
second
not
violinist
resist
here.
the second violin.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
Just give in.
nobody's listening to me. They are listening to you. If I screw up and they hear it, they're going to blame it on you. If you screw up, they're going to blame it on you. So you might as well just let me take care of a lot of these things so then you can go your way. Because your violin will sound much more expensive because you've got a lower resonance coming out of it, right? So anything I do, they will automatically credit to you. Isn't that wonderful?
You get all the benefit,
Seems a
and he
little
does all the
fair, doesn't
work.
it?
And I do all the work. So, and like even in the ba-yum-bum-ba, if you let me control and shape this for you, all you have to do is just make sure you're a little bit on top. Tiny little bit. And then if you want to, you can go way out on top. I mean, you've got all that room. But again, if we're resisting, then you've only got your sound. And I really want to help you. But I need you to come along for the ride. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Let's
Wanna
try
do
it
it again?
again. Now, yeah, they're clapping.
Right, always bow when they applaud.
So, did you notice, like, he needed a little bit of help in the da-ya-da-da. He got just a little stuck, so I just slowed down. I was like, it's all right. We'll find your way here. Now here we go. And you relaxed your sound rather than adding tension because you were stuck. And so, again, there's going to be a lot of stuff that happens here. We just need to fix it in that split second before they know about it. And that's what I can do for you. And you notice how you actually changed your sound as well? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so beautiful. Nobody notices these things, though. And you actually, that's the job of a great second violinist. Nobody knows that all of that stuff is going on. It just feels like, oh, this is so cool. What other things did you notice? Anything new?
What did you guys notice?
We did some additional things there. For example, in the opening, we started strong. And I sat there and thought, well, there is no way we're going to sustain this and still have room for my friend over here, and you're going to run into trouble because we've got a crescendo coming in 4 bars. So did you notice? I was like, hey, we need to come down. Mm-hmm. John was like, oh, Will did that. And he did it almost at the same time. Both of us were like, wait.
I could tell he was going to do that.
Right?
I've also played with him a long time. But
and did you hear? You trusted us, and you're like, wait, they just disappeared. Well, I'll just follow that down. They must be up to something.
It wasn't hard for you to do it because we just were like, here you are. Let's play a little softer.
Right? Because we're sitting there going, well, we don't have all this attention on us, and we've got a shape. We know what you're after. We've heard you a couple times now, and we've got some things to take care of here. Come with us. It'll be good for you. And then if you want something different, you started to crescendo, and then we supported you up there, right? So long-term and short-term planning for what is needed. Because I'm not just thinking about yours, but I'm thinking about my friend over here and what I got to get him to at the Fortissimo at 19. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And these are all things we can take care of because we're ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
The only thing I would add with all this stuff, I don't want to get into something different, but I feel like we're trying to show in the middle voices a very specific level for the different dynamics and colors. And I would urge you guys, I feel like we're bringing more full pianos in general, or more variety of pianos. We're trying to make sure our pianos aren't too low, and we're very aware of like how, like he was talking about, how high the fortes are, where are these fortissimos. And I think that's something that, again, is an inner voice. In this writing, the inner voices have the most control of that. And I think some of you guys could be more aware of, too. Do you want to try playing and see if you can do what we're doing?
Yeah, should we put them both in at once or shift one in and then the other?
How much time do we have?
What time?
4 minutes?
4 minutes. All right.
Should we put them both in?
Both in.
All right. And I would love to have you do this maybe 2 or 3 times the excerpt we did, so you have a chance to start exploring leading, listening, reacting, trying things, because there's not one. We're not trying to get you to do all the things that we just did by we watched you do these things, we want to do those. It's more the dynamic of interaction and adjustment. And you two are different people and different players than us, and what you'll contribute is different, and how you feel the energy in the group is different. So I'd love, maybe we could do it twice.
Yeah, let's do it twice. Yes.
You want to do it one more time? This is already better. Could I put a focus on it? Could I say that the two of you, the inner voices, want to play so that you're as unified as possible? And despite all the things we've been talking about with you playing to the other voices and we're playing to the other voices, that isn't as effective unless the two of you are a unified team. Could we do it one more time where honestly the middle voices are focused on only playing with each other and being unified and matched with each other? You know what they have. You don't need to play it to them. Make them listen to you.
Can I throw one other angle at it? Can I just sit here for a minute?
Do it.
So we're just going to give you a different first violin experience as well. Let's see what happens. And you, whoa, come on back over here.
He wants
right
you
there.
to feel the energy.
Go ahead. I haven't played this for a couple of years.
I'm going to stop you. If it's all about you, you guys should command the beginning. The first bar is you. Doesn't really matter about him.
Ignore him.
I loved how you guys were energized. I loved how much attention you had to her, even when you weren't playing the same thing. It's how does my part interact? I love you feeling like I control the group, because you do. I mean, this is what I want to do, and he'll listen to me. It was a
Did you
really
notice
different
how
feeling.
I didn't give many cues? And you were looking at me like, when are you going to cue? I'm like, you tell me where to play, my friend. I don't know where to play. I'm a second violin. What's going on? Ah! And eventually you were like, oh, he's not giving it. Okay, here. Right? Can we do that just one more time?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm even sitting back in my chair. It's nice. All this work is being done.
And I even want to praise you. There was a couple of places where you forgot which the right note was because you weren't looking at your music. You were attentive to other people. I would rather that attention. I think, and I don't mind so much about my own playing, at least in these exercises that we're really focused on each other.
Sing with me.
I just want to point out, for example, I was trying to shift your attention. As soon as he joins you in octaves, you don't need to pay attention to him. You two have been having your dialogue and you're continuing. It's important that you make sense. And if you're convincing, he'll join you and it's his problem to be in tune and be with you. You don't have to suddenly be like, oh no, I'm not as important. I loved how it sounded this time, and it also helped you integrate with the rest of the quartet. The second violin is often the bridge to the rest of the quartet for the first violin.
And as a first violinist, you notice now they have time to do what they need to do. Whereas, so I'm just like, hey, what do you need to do? You show me. I could do anything up here. I could swirl around. I could add some heat. You need some heat? What do you want? Versus, this is what I need. Because you actually have much more flexibility than the structure of the quartet that's going on there. So let's try it one last time, then we'll get to the next group.
So much
that's
better.
How's it? That to me sounds now like we got a real quartet working. And you can add more sprinkles and heat wherever you want, but now everybody's got time. And we're getting the sound and the individuality. So that now needs to take over the rest of the quartet.
Right.
But hopefully this gives you a really great starting point to say, okay, find this feeling. Find what do we do in this opening section? How does it apply here? Because in this particular movement, there's a lot of similar things going on. She's just doing them over and over and over. So, bravo.
Good job, you guys.
Yep.
Thank you for letting us work with you like this. Thanks. Great. All right. And one more group.
Thank you, Gary, for the extra time.
No problem.
That was a long 4 minutes.
It was just an excuse so I could play the first violin part. Really, that's all. That's all that was all about.
He really missed it. That's what that all was heading towards.
That would be useful in a second. Is this yours? This is mine. This one's yours? I think this one's mine, yeah.
I just want to say, great job. This is, it's a tricky piece. There's a lot of techniques that you have to keep switching back and forth with. There's rhythmic challenges, which are a little complicated, and it's quite a long movement. So I want to just, number one, say congratulations, and I can appreciate all the hard work it took into getting this together and getting it to the high level that you guys are at.
Yeah.
I want to talk about some of techniques and balances and stuff like that.
Yeah,
What do you
I
want
was
to talk
thinking
about?
just a little bit of like the swing
and more
letting
style.
the band roll a little bit. So why don't you start?
You know, maybe this is a good, just kind of a general thing to remind everybody who's a string player who's listening, whether they're playing modern music or more traditional music, 19th century. I think it's really important for us to keep in mind that all the wonderful techniques that composers ask us to use are great, and that they don't all, certain techniques on our instruments are acoustically more favorable than others. So one of the things I want us to be aware of is that pizzicato is always softer than arco. And not only individual notes that are pizzicato, strummed things are also generally a little softer than a single note, right? Because you can grab things with your finger to create more sound on a single note. Harmonics played arco are softer than stop notes played arco. So when I'm approaching a piece like this from a technical standpoint, there's many ways you can. I think it's important, I'm going to try to walk around and look, I can't see the score, at dynamics and stuff.
I have the score here if you need it.
Oh, great. Yeah. For example, in the beginning, I thought a lot of your balance was really excellent. And to Jessie's credit, I mean, she's a wonderful string player and has played a lot in quartet. A lot of it works naturally very well. The opening was a place where immediately I thought, it sounds like the viola pizzicato is piano or pianissimo, and the opening arco dynamics of other people sounded like they were forte. And that has nothing to do with anything other than the way the techniques work. So I would have loved for us to just be aware that we have to kind of compensate a little bit acoustically for making the different techniques actually sound like she wants to write, how she writes them to sound on the page. And I thought the beginning was maybe the biggest example of that. So for you particularly, I wish that you could have played a little more full, again, to sort of make sure that you're louder than them in their entrances here, but also pizzicato doesn't sustain, arco immediately sustains. I think we do want to make sure we're compensating for that a little bit too, that ya-da-da-dum-bum, each of the eighth notes has a little more vibrato, a little more sustain, a little more juice in the left hand. Can you just try the opening? Just try to make sure, imagining you're playing it with the bow and how full that mezzo forte sound would be, and also how much of a line you can make. Do you guys have him just try the opening?
Sure. Yep. Here's the score.
Thank you. I already like that much better. I mean, first of all, you're the tune. I wonder if we could have even a little more vibrato on the eighth notes with the tenuto notes, and even more accent on the notes that are accented.
Cool.
Right. For me, that's already much better.
That's already getting there. And can I just layer in then? So, what's the beat that you're feeling? So it's awkward, right? Because it's 7/8. So are you relating this to a 7/8 bar? Because then she's also changed a little bit, a couple things there. Are you thinking like what's your small grouping within the 7/8? Are you thinking about 7/8? Help me understand your rhythm. He's thinking about it.
It's a good thing to think about, right?
For me, more like 4/3.
So. Gotcha. So 4. So you're thinking. Let me just come over so we can look at it together.
You're thinking of groups of 4 and 3. Is that what you said?
So.
No choice.
Well, there's no, again,
no right
we're
answer.
always looking at this in terms of, okay, well, what clues is the composer giving us? How does it feel to us? And then how do we bring those together? So you're thinking da da dee da 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 dee da da da, and then ya da 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 dee da da. Is that right? And the challenge with that is the way she's barred it, right? And then also, how does that feel in the next bar? Are you thinking da 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 dum bum ba? So we've got 1 2 3 4 1. So 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 2 3, which can work because it helps set up that second bar. But I wonder then what it would sound like if you did more of the shaping that she barred there. We're going to go back to singing because that's just fun and easy to hear these things. Can we just sing it once with the accents and the issues that John was talking about, but to actually bar it that way? Ready? And ba ba beep ba 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 beep ba da ba 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 dum bum ba dum bum bim bum bum ba 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 dum ba 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 ya ba 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 dum bum ba. So we start to get this feeling of a swing inside of it. And some of them are going to be a deeper swing, right, if we're swinging from here. Some of them are going to be a more narrower swing. And to me, that's part of also what her music needs. There's a lot of folk elements that come into this. And what's happening is I can't feel the different swings. They're all about the same swing. And so then as an audience member, I can't figure out where to tap my toe. And so I can't actually get into the swing with you. If you're more clear about it, then we just ride along. We don't even notice it was a 7/8. We're like, oh, this is cool. There's a 5 and then a 2. Yeah. So now can you play that and bring that out?
I like that a lot better.
And, as an audience, now we're all starting to shift around, right? And it feels much more like an aesthetic and a character. And the thing I would relate it to, I know we've got like 4 minutes left, but the thing I would relate it to is like there's a lot of band and then vocal elements to this. So when you're playing with a band, who's in charge of the band? Is it the lead vocalist or is it the drummer? It's the drummer. Whatever that drummer does is what the whole thing is going to do. And so throughout this piece, I would be looking, okay, where's the drummer? And what's the swing? Because now what was happening is all of the other elements were relating to that.
Yes.
They knew whether they were with it, whether they were anticipating it, or whether they were late to it. And so the whole groove of the quartet starts to sit into a place. And it's going to shift as you go through, right? Does that make sense?
And that's true not only for the swing, but we were talking initially about sound colors. Now you're relating your piano to the piano dynamic that you're hearing from him in pizzicato. You have to adjust. You're relating your harmonic piano to the non-harmonic piano that she has, or where he's setting up the boundaries. So that awareness that you're using whatever sonically, not only the rhythmic swing, but the dynamic and sonic bass line that you're setting up, we all relate to. I think you're right. Pretty much the whole movement
the whole
has
piece,
somebody that sets that up rhythmically and sonically.
And then there's places like, I was looking at the score 202, where you're all pits.
Yeah, right.
And you're all kind of the band. But there's little elements of solo vocal lines, like Bono popping out or whoever it is. And so it's like, okay, figure those out. And be very clear, like we would walk through a piece like this and be like, okay, so we got this set. Where does it change? So at the beginning to X is this kind of a flow. And then at X, what does it pivot to? Let's figure that one out, and then let's bridge the gap. Let's get through that. At 202, there's a lot of different elements. You're all pizzicato. So it's like who is relating to who and where's the drummer, and figuring that out. Does that make sense? Yeah. And it just frees everybody up. Because you're not now reacting. I mean, in a sense, it sets up some of the boundaries we were talking about with the other groups. It's like you're now free to just groove.
Right.
And if they're not with you, they'll figure it out.
Right, because you're in control.
And you're like, oh, do I come in here? Oh, yeah. Oh, that's nice. Or I could do it a little louder. So it actually opens up a lot more freedom for everybody.
Yeah, I think this is great. This is a great focus for you guys as you work through it. It's going to be really great for you to perform it. It's a good piece for you. You guys have done a lot of hard work.
Yeah, bravo. I'm sorry we got to end.
I know we're going to stop a little bit.
Bravo.
Good job.
I just want to point out, did you notice that all pivots around the viola?
Yes.
Oh my God.
The world revolves around the viola. Jessie plays a lot of viola sometimes. She's good at that. Do you want to do any Q&A, or we?
Yeah, that's the whole idea. So
Great.
now, guys, when they exit the stage, we should open it up.
Yeah.
Any kind of questions you may have.
You want to sit down?
Yeah, this is it.
You can ask us really anything, because we will either answer it or we'll find our way out of it. What kinds of questions do you have?
You can really ask anything.
Anything.
I have a question, actually.
Sure.
Not as a ringer, but really. You mentioned the word energy many times today, and in some ways it's a metaphor for direction, both for instrumentalists and for the whole group.
Yep.
If a less experienced group, let's say a student group, how does one approach that when some of them may feel like that direction is actually just changing the tempo? Where do you find that equilibrium?
Can I answer that? I mean, so I would expand the idea. We use the word energy and not tempo or not direction necessarily, because a lot of times what we're looking for in the, quote, energy level from all the different parts is kind of a focus of intention and intentionality of how you play. Yes, when we sat down and played some of the parts with you guys with more intention, sometimes the tempo got faster, sometimes the dynamic got louder, but that is only secondary to what the idea of the energy and the intention is. A lot of times in our group, as we mentioned, we talk about roles and really channeling your energy and focus into totally embodying that role in the quartet at any given time, and then sending that intention with energy to the person that needs it in the group. And that could be, for example, even in a soft and slow movement, that you're actually sending the intention of sadness, or sending the color of your bass line, or sending that one voice change that changes the harmony in the middle voices to create an effect. So I mean, I know it's interesting to kind of talk about what energy means to us in the quartet, and you might have a different idea, but for me a lot of it's that intentionality and then embodying that intention in a way that communicates to others.
I mean, there are so many different ways to talk about this. The other, I would add, maybe in this context, I remember when I was really young, somebody introducing the concept of every force has an equal and opposite force, and that particles are constantly actually feeling each other side by side, even though this is air. I was like, what are you talking about? This is crazy. But I think we also think and talk and feel a lot of that energy all the time, and then we activate or use that within the dynamic of a quartet. So even in this space right now, we are all connected energetically. And we can feel, like you as performers, when you step out here, suddenly you feel the energetics of the audience shifting against you. And part of the question is, how do you react or engage with that? Either push against it or allow it to wash over you, bring it closer, and how can you move the energy of an audience or of a space or a room? And so we're also feeling that very intentionally in the quartet. One of the visuals I often will use is like the Harry Potter movies, where Voldemort and Harry Potter, and they have the wand colors, and it's red and it's green, and John's going to be Voldemort because he's a violist. But Harry's holding it, and the green, which doesn't make sense, by the way, because isn't evil red?
No, it's because he's a serpent
it's just,
person.
I know,
it's
it doesn't make
stuff.
sense. And it's coming to Harry, and we see this amount of energy coming at and almost overwhelming him. And then, the music pumps up, and the Harry's wand and the color goes further, and you feel that balance. And we very much feel and think and play with that kind of space, even though it's not something you can visually see. Something that can be imagined and something that we're all feeling consistently through our lives. So that's another part and aspect of the energetics that we talk about in the quartet, that we're not just pushing sound or giving visual cues, but John knew I was going to do that before I did. How?
I felt a shift in your energy, to be totally honest. I did not see anything, I wasn't even looking at him, but I felt a shift in your energy.
And so, we've spent tens of thousands of hours together. At the same time, we can sit in a quartet with you and have that impact because we have clarity and we've worked on shaping that for our individual selves. And so that's another aspect of the energy that we think a lot about and use in what we're doing. And we very much use it with an audience. Earlier this summer, we had played the same concert one night at 8 and the next night at 5. And when we started the concert at 8, the audience was pumped. And they were ready to go. And the concert at 5, they were really low energy. And we were like, what's going on here? And the quartet reacts very differently, so that by the time we were finished with that 5 p.m. audience, they were actually more pumped than the 8 p.m. audience at the end. And we're using that as performers and artists and as humans. And I think it's a really important thing as you're growing on your instrument and interacting in the world to be considerate.
For sure. Good question.
Yeah.
Hi. So besides the constant focus on constantly raising our technique level and our performance and just raising the quality constantly, what other professional development advice do you have for young string quartets like us?
Well, that's a good question.
That's
That's a broad, many answers for that one. Do you want to go first?
Can you restate the question so we can...
Sure, yeah. Why don't you're better at restating questions.
Correct me if I'm restating incorrectly. In addition to the focus on trying to just play our instruments better and the search for quality, what other advice could we give to a young musician for expanding and enriching and improving their career? Is that what you're asking for? Okay.
Like what elements are really important to building a career in music? This is something that we both do a lot of work on with our own students and with our own quartets. One of the main things that I like to focus on is, what's your passion and what is it that really excites you to do? Because a career in music, you do have to have a certain level of playing. You have to keep working on that. That's something I feel like I'm playing better still now than I was a couple days ago. And at some point that's going to turn around. But I feel like that's part of me that's still growing, and that's not something that's going to be complete in 4 years or 6 years or 8 years, whatever degree you complete. So what are the other things? Relationships. What are the relationships you have? Because those networking capabilities, your ability to be like, you know what, I'd love to do this and I want to do it with my buddy John, or no, I don't want to do it with John, I got to avoid him.
I want to do this with somebody else.
And how you build those relationships, how you foster them, and to build relationships that you really enjoy. Like, if I didn't enjoy spending time with John, I wouldn't be here right now with him. And so that comes back to the passion. It's like, well, I love to play fiddle tunes. And I love to play classical string quartets. I want to focus on the music of Beethoven, but you know what? There's this piece by Jesse Montgomery. I love that. And I really want to play for smaller audiences. I don't actually want to spend my life touring around the world. I want to play and connect with communities and build this center in the community here. So that's what the passions can then fuel. But if you haven't gotten the clarity on some of the whys of what you really love about the instrument. So I'll give you an example. I love to play the violin, but I'm not all about the violin. What I love is the collaboration and the building and the curiosity and the experimentation, the freedom that the music of a quartet and the ensemble of that gets to provide. As well, we can go anywhere and we don't need anything. We can transform a moment for anybody in less than 5 minutes by just setting ourselves up and connecting with you and sitting in a space, whether that's in the Amazon or on a concert stage. There's something very particular about that moment, and I could talk to you for hours about it. And so then my life is crafted around that, and it happens to be in the string quartet. I love playing in the orchestra. Oh my gosh, I love it. Could I do that all the time? No, because I don't get the kinds of feedback and individuality that I'm really seeking. So for me, it's like focusing on that and then seeing what spreads from there, although relationships,
Oh, yeah, totally.
relationships, I could say it forever. What would you
I
add?
totally agree with everything he said. And just to sort of maybe take it another step further, you know, in the end, your career is about you. It's about what you want, what makes you happy, what you want to say. No matter how well you work on your instrument, to say what you want to say well, you have to have something to say. That's true whether you're playing in an orchestra and you're one of a big group, or whether you're a soloist playing solo concerts, or whether after doing a degree in music, you want to become the executive programming director of the New York Philharmonic, and you don't want to play all the time. But what your music education has done is given you something to say in the arts that can be said so many different ways. So I think with what Will is talking about, thinking about your career in a larger standpoint, thinking when you play every piece of music, you know, why is it that you want to play this? And what do you have to say that makes it special? Not just, oh, I'm playing it well, or I'm playing it better than somebody else. These are the things that in the end make what we do personal and make it worth it for us to do it every day for all of our lives. But also, I think I'll just I think you were implying this, when we come out on stage as a quartet and play a quartet a certain way because we really love it and we really feel like we mean something by what we're doing and we're really inspired by each other, maybe challenged by each other, the audience likes that. They're not necessarily looking to see us do it the way they heard in their favorite recording that they bought 2 years ago, or the way another group did it that they liked. You have more success connecting with others when you've really connected with yourself. That might be, that's hard to do, but that's what our journey as artists are.
Yeah. I would also add, just on top of it, like your careers and what's possible in the world is an unopened box that is exploding right now.
So many things.
And like 2 examples, one example even that's now old, it would be somebody named Lindsey Sterling, who is a fiddler. I remember, because I was a fiddler, people like texting me like, have you seen Lindsey Sterling? I'm like, who the heck is Lindsey Sterling? And this woman, she fiddles and dances and makes videos on YouTube, and she's got more followers than John Legend on YouTube. And she's playing with rock stars. The economics of her life are completely different, because she was like, I love to do this. I'm going to do it. Let's see what happens. And she found an audience. We were just in Florida, and a friend of mine showed up and was like, I got to tell you what I'm doing. And I was like, well, what are you doing? And he's like, I got these suits, and I'm in the metaverse, and I'm with all of these investors. He has investors. And he got suits, and they have a cellist that only exists in the metaverse that companies hire to manipulate and use in the metaverse or out here. They put their face on it, they do make it do things, and they're constantly, he spends his day programming and inputting things a cellist could do. And again, his economics are completely different because of this. And that's something that it's like, I had
Cellist in the metaverse?
I had so many questions. Like, you're going to have to talk to me about this. But like, what is possible and what you all have experienced in your life is totally different that we have. What you're connecting to and what you're able to produce or even imagine is going to create a very unique opportunity for every single person in this room.
Yeah.
And what you do with it depends on, you know, getting in touch with that fire inside of you and figuring out then what you want to do. Yeah.
And I know we keep talking about this, but maybe another piece of advice is try stuff and see. And failing or having things not go the way you want or making a mistake in trying to do something new is great, because that means you've just gotten one step closer to making it a success. If you don't know how to make it a success, give it a shot, make some mistakes, try it again. So that's something too, is just as you explore all these things, don't be afraid to just put your foot in it, and maybe things don't work out the way you want the first time. But if you keep putting that foot in front of, that foot of attempting things, one foot in front of another, you'll get where you want to go.
Cool.
We have time probably for one more question. Yes, go ahead.
What is your favorite string quartet piece?
It's a good one. It's a good
Very
question.
Yeah.
What do you think? How do you want to answer that?
I don't know. I'm going to think about it for a second.
Okay, well,
One of the Razumovskys.
It
You
is.
think?
Yeah.
Aren't you guys playing?
Yeah, we got
oh
all
yes,
three of them
it's
tomorrow.
it's well, one of the our first violinist likes to answer that question with whatever piece I'm playing at the moment is my favorite piece, which I understand. The spirit of that is that, you know, when we're on stage, I mean, what's true about that is we all try to really be completely in the work of the moment, like there's nothing else, and that's our favorite piece in the moment. We try to really embody it. It's interesting because since you're musicians, some of the pieces I enjoy most playing are not essentially the pieces I like to listen to the most, or even the pieces that I love the most, how they affect the audience. Frankly, some pieces are really hard and uncomfortable and don't feel great. And I can appreciate how wonderful it is to play them and share them with the audience. I love playing them, but you know, maybe this question's not an opportunity to share that. It's like, I don't always go out and say, I love this, it feels so great, so easy. You know, things that sometimes are really great for us to play are challenging, and yeah, I don't always love that challenge. I mean, and actually, I wasn't thinking about it beforehand. The Razumovskys, for me, are often in that group because I feel like the parts are very difficult. I feel like sometimes I have to be more involved in my focus on the group than enjoying the music in those pieces. Those are ones particularly. And I know that I love how much the audience enjoys them, but they're not a walk in the park,
It's
right?
also this impending doom of a big viola solo.
Well, it's
to
really
start
fast
off,
at the end.
Right, it just hangs over there for 2.5 hours, and then bam!
Well,
fast viola solo.
And the other thing too, I mean, just to say that, like I would say the last two movements of 59.3 are some of the most tiring things for me personally on the viola. And to play, I love the idea that we do this program of all three pieces. I think it's really cool musically. Is it the easiest and my favorite way to play the last two movements of 59.3 is after 2 hours and 15 minutes of playing all the other ones? No. So I mean, I'm answering your question in kind of a.
You didn't answer his question.
I mean, if you're gonna pick my favorite string quartet that I love to listen to, I like the late quartets of Beethoven a lot, and I think 131 might be my favorite string quartet to listen to as an audience member. To play, honestly, these days I'm really enjoying playing Ravel Quartet a lot.
Ooh, how about that?
It feels fun. It feels great. It feels wonderful. It's enjoyable to play. It's not tiring. I feel like I can affect the quartet well. And those are two really different answers. What do you think now that I've talked all about that?
Yeah. It's not about that for me.
Yeah.
So I don't actually have an answer that's a specific quartet. In relation to what we were talking about earlier, for me it's the art of the quartet playing. And so I'm trying to think like, well, are there quartets that have more inside of how their inner workings or how they come together? And it's just different in every quartet. So it's been interesting to me. I think earlier in my life, I was about specific quartets. Like I remember really wanting to play Opus 74 and to play both the first violin and the second violin part. But it's no longer about that for me. It's about the act of getting into this relationship of four people with what the composers have created for us. So we have people in our quartet who don't like the Ravel Quartet.
Right.
And earlier in my life, I might have had an opinion on that, but it's actually, it doesn't really exist anymore. It's more what I love is this act of what is this art that we get to create here? What's the action of doing it? I don't necessarily enjoy sitting in quartet concerts.
Mm-hmm.
It drives me crazy a lot of the time because I want to be up there and I see things that they could be doing or I would love for them to do and they're not doing it. And I'm like, what? And so it really comes down to me that is my favorite thing about playing quartets is the art of doing it. And therefore the repertoire doesn't actually matter. Yeah.
I will say that what's on my car radio when I'm playing now is not classical music mostly. So Bad Bunny and other reggaeton is figuring prominently on my driving, my favorite listening. So that doesn't mean I don't love string quartets, but it's like it's not all that I listen to.